Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Catholic Citizen, episode number 24. My name is Peter Range, and I'm just so excited to be with you this morning, live on AWAKEN Catholic, live on YouTube. And folks, today's show, it's all me. They left me alone, literally in the studio by myself. They gave me this fuzzy microphone and all the controls right here on my computer. It's going to be a fantastic show because no one else is going to be bothering me, talking to my earpiece during the show. No, I'm just kidding. Nonetheless, today is a really important show, and I hope you'll stick around with us. We're talking a little bit about the George Floyd trial. I want to talk to you about an individual named Micah Parsons. I want to talk about President Biden. I want to talk about a lot of things happening in the nation. Please stick around with us. We're going to continue in just a minute. All right, folks, well, welcome back. Another thing they did to me, my show notes, they gave me this Smart Solve paper, and we love the people at Smart Solve. They're not a sponsor of this, so they should be, but this paper, it's kind of flimsy, so I feel I'm not ready for this show. Nonetheless, there are some great organizations that we want you to help support, including AWAKEN Catholic. So please go to awakencatholic.com/donate right now. You can help support great shows like the Catholic Citizen, Pop Culture Catechism. There's Elevate Ordinary. There's so many great shows on AWAKEN Catholic. Please support us. Secondly, there's a tremendous app where there's a community of about 500 people on this app where we can talk about these difficult issues. We can share life together. Encourage you to download at the Apple Store today, the AWAKEN app. Finally, friends, we cannot do a show of the Catholic Citizen without talking about my friends at Casa Bea Cleaning. Casa Bea is absolutely fantastic, top of the line, okay? Actually, we should have my friends of Casa Bea Cleaning on the show sometime so you get to meet them because they are terrific people. They're pro-life, and they are incredibly competent. They can help clean your bathrooms, your living rooms, your dining rooms, or if you have a place of work, your desks and your chairs and your computers, all those things, you name it, they'll clean it. Please support Casa Bea Cleaning today. All right, now, the neat thing about me kind of running the show here a little bit is I can see your comments live, whether that's on YouTube or Facebook, whatever it may be. So I can even highlight some of these comments. So Nick and Alina, thank you so much for watching the show. I can put you up. I'm so pumped. Peter is amazing. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate that. They run this operation, so they better be saying that. So Kevin is also with us, and he says, that suit, though. I don't even know what that means, but Kevin, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. So if you want to leave a comment, I'll be checking those as we're going along with the show, but bear with me here. There are some serious things we need to talk about in the country and nation today. So the first story, we're just going to cover 4, is, of course, the fact that former police officer Derek Chauvin was found guilty of second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and manslaughter in the death of George Floyd. Floyd, of course, was killed on May 25th, 2020, after Chauvin, a Minneapolis police officer at the time, was videotaped kneeling on the back and neck of Floyd for more than 9 minutes during an arrest. In the video of the arrest, Floyd, whose killing sparked racial injustice protests around the country, had repeatedly saying that he can't breathe. Just even thinking about this video is just, it's difficult to think about. It's challenging. Now, Chauvin faces up to 40 years in prison for second-degree murder, and because he was convicted on all 3 counts, the sentencing will focus on that crime of second-degree murder. Now, a couple of things on this case and this entire situation that we've lived through as a country in the past year and a half here since the murder of George Floyd. Number one, the death of George Floyd was tragic. I mean, we can't get around that. Simply put, he should not have died in the custody of police, but he did. Now, a lot of people have pointed out, and we're not denying this, that he was resisting arrest, that he was high on multiple drugs. All those things are true. But none of those things point to George Floyd deserving to die. He didn't deserve to die. And unfortunately, it is a tragedy that he is dead. Number 2, equally disturbing to me, is the aftermath of what happened to George Floyd, however, because it led to the 19 deaths of other Americans, including innocent civilians and police officers. The riots that followed. Now, again, there was the majority of peaceful protests across our nation, but some did turn violent, very violent. 19 deaths from the death of one man. How did that bring justice to one man in this past year? Not to mention the $2 billion worth of damage all across our great cities in this country. Number three, or let me just point this out on that second point. Those 19 deaths that took place after the death of George Floyd, those deaths cry out for justice as well. Let's talk about those deaths as well. All right, number three. Look, I trust the legal system, and I trust that justice was served in this case. I mean, we have to trust the legal system. I mean, whatever our other options? I mean, are we going to just go to mob rule? I mean, there literally was people calling for, Derek Chauvin's, death by hanging right after this, right? But everyone deserves their time in court. Derek Chauvin got his. He was convicted of these crimes. But here's the issue. Because politicians were attempting to score political points, everything that took place, including the guilty verdict, could be overturned. Look, three politicians, the mayor of Minneapolis, Representative Maxine Waters, and the president of the United States, Joe Biden, all weighed in on the case, all saying there needs to be a guilty verdict before the verdict even came out. Now, in our criminal justice system, we don't do that. We don't do that, especially from our elected representatives, because we don't try to influence the jury. So each of these politicians claimed in their own way that they believe Chauvin should receive a guilty verdict. The judge, in fact, in this case, even said that there might be grounds for a mistrial, specifically because of what Representative Maxine Waters said. I mean, she seemingly called for violence if Chauvin was found innocent. She said we need to, quote, get more confrontational. Look, the whole point again here is that the jury is not influenced by the outside world. They look at the facts of the case, which I believe they did in the situation, and they render a verdict based upon the facts of this case. But when you have individuals out there, representative individuals saying that there's going to be more violence if the individual is found guilty in this particular situation, I mean, that's scary, folks. Look, even on Fox News, Greg Gutfeld on the 5 said that he was glad the verdict was guilty because my neighborhood was not looted then, basically. Drawing pushback from his fellow hosts, he said he wanted a verdict that kept this country from going up in flames. So you had public commentators also out there just saying, gosh, we need a guilty verdict because we don't want to see carnage on the country. Folks, I want justice to take place in the case. And again, I believe in this case, justice was served, but we can't prejudge the verdict based upon what we do or do not want to happen in the rest of the country. That's a really dangerous precedent to set. Gutfeld's comments reveal, I think, a really scary reality then for the nation at this moment. Rather than seeking justice, no matter what that justice was, Gutfeld was more concerned about whether there would be riots or not. In other words, Gutfeld feared the mob and what the mob would do if the mob didn't get the verdict they desired. Now, again, I believe justice was served in this trial. But if we as a nation are more fearful of the fallout of the trial, rather than justice being served in a trial, what does that say about the future of our nation? Because this could have been, and it seemingly was for the jury, a very clear-cut case that, yes, Derek Chauvin is guilty. And now he's going to serve the punishment for his crimes. But what about in those cases that aren't necessarily so clear-cut? Are we going to bow to the rule of the mob in those cases? Fear for the future of our country. Now, secondly, as America watched the Minneapolis courthouse awaiting a verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial the same day, a news story would grab national headlines. It was taking place right here down the street in Columbus, Ohio. Micaiah Bryan, a 16-year-old young woman, was killed by a police officer as she was attempting to stab another black woman in an altercation. But that's not how the media reported it, or again, what our politicians even wanted us to hear. Rather, this is what we heard about the particular case immediately from the national news media. The New York Times ran the headline, "Teenage Girl is Fatally Shot by Police in Columbus." Now, you wouldn't think from that headline that another black life was saved during this situation. At NPR, the following headline was still live on this website as of yesterday. Columbus police shoot and kill a black teenage girl. So that's the headline NPR threw out there. Now, they even follow that up with, this is a developing story. Some facts reported by the media may turn out later to be wrong. So why are you reporting a headline that might turn out to be wrong? Don't you understand how incendiary a headline like that can be, especially during a time of racial tension in our nation? But the Washington Post, they titled their story, Ohio Police Fatally Shoot Black Teenage Girl Just Before Chauvin Verdict. The report's opening lines read, the fatal shooting of a black teenager by Columbus police on Tuesday stoked grief and anger, just as the murder conviction of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin was being celebrated as a sign of long-elusive accountability for law enforcement. Folks, these are our major media outlets. Before they have all the facts of the case, they're just putting out there, Ohio police shoot a black girl, shoot a black teenage girl. That's the story. That's the story they broadcast across the entire nation. And of course, NBA star LeBron James has to get on it as well. He doxed the police officer, put up his picture on his Twitter account and said, "You're next." Cory Booker, Senator of the United States of America, one of our leaders, someone who ran for president of the United States, also goes on his Twitter account and puts, Ma'Khia Bryant was only 16 years old, killed by police yesterday. She deserves justice and accountability. We must reform this deeply broken system. My heart is with Ma'Khia and loved ones. Okay, number one. In a time of racial unrest, this is some of the most reckless and dangerous reporting I have ever seen, seeking not to report the truth, but to create clickbait that it can only further stir racial tension in our communities. When we need healing, when we need the truth presented to us, all the major newspapers and websites and senators and NBA stars are out there pushing a narrative which doesn't look at the facts of the case. I encourage you, go watch the video yourself. Look, I mourn the death of Ma'Khia Bryant. It's absolutely tragic. Again, we don't wish the death of anyone, let alone a teenager. We don't wish the death of someone wielding a knife in these situations. I mean, having worked with kids in foster care like Ma'Khia Bryant was, I know how difficult some of these situations can be. But number three, I've watched the video over and over again before I've talked about it here. She was about to stab another African-American young woman. In a split second, the police officer acted to save that young woman's life. Otherwise, Ma'Khia Bryant would have killed that woman with a knife, or at least severely harmed her. But in a span of just a few hours, after saving someone's life, that police officer was vilified, doxxed, and his career most likely ended now, trying to save another human person who was not yielding a knife, who was desperate for someone to save her. And I encourage you, if you think he should have taken his taser out, to watch videos of assailants attacking others and the police trying to subdue them with tasers. It doesn't always just work nice and easy and clean in a split second to take out the taser and shoot someone. As a police officer, you're not trained to shoot someone in the leg. You don't do that because you might miss. These things happen in a split second. And you have to work to protect the individual in that immediate split second. Number four, friends, we as a nation cannot support, if we can't support a police officer who literally saved an unarmed teenager, how can we expect good men and women will still want to join or even be on the police forces or even stay in their current jobs? Look, already 700 police officers have quit their jobs in the past year and a half in Baltimore, having them to close 2 precincts because of the way that they're being treated and denigrated across our nation. This is an honorable profession and they protect us. But crime rates are just going to be skyrocketing as they already are across this nation because we don't have our police officers, because we're not respecting this nation. All right. Number five, let me just talk about a few other things here to consider. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Call is on. Peter, you are a beast. Keep speaking the truth. Calling me a beast, I don't know. Should I put that on live air? That's just, I don't even know what that means. Number five, Folks, here are some statistics just to consider in this context of police shootings, okay? And I'm not even going to make comments on these first statistics. I'm just going to read them to you from statistica.com, okay? In 2020, 457 white people were shot to death by the police. Now, we're not looking at the situations. Was it armed robbery? Were they shooting back at the police? We're not looking at each individual situation. The number of unarmed individuals, I mean, it's you can count them on one hand, but we're just talking about, excuse me, whether they're in a fight or not, whatever it may be, okay? Just plain statistics for you. 2020, 457 white people were shot to death by police. 241 black people were shot to death by police. 169 Hispanic people were shot to death by police. Now, even if you put all these numbers together, they don't even equal 1,000. Each death, absolutely tragic, 100%. We don't want to see the death of anybody, but we have to follow the facts. Here are some other facts to put those numbers in context for you. Again, we're not even looking at the fact that unarmed shootings, we're talking about on one hand here or on two hands here. But with that being said, on an average year, there are over 240 million 911 calls that police are responding to every single year. So the vast majority of interactions that police have with our communities each year, we're talking in the hundreds of millions, do not involve the death and the shooting deaths of individuals they're going to help out. I mean, it's not even close to even being a statistic. But yet the New York Times, NPR, LeBron James, Senator Cory Booker have made it clear they don't care about the facts. But friends, we must. Otherwise, this nation, which is pulling apart at the seams because of the way that the media reports this stuff, it's just scary. Let me finish with this discussion with this final point. Look, I do believe racism exists in our nation. I've witnessed it firsthand, and I've had friends who've experienced it. I'm not going to ignore that or pretend that it doesn't exist. And we as a church, particularly those of us who attend churches that are predominantly white, we have to go out of our way to help our churches become more welcoming, to reflect the body of Christ and to love people. I mean, let's be honest. Our church family is not very welcoming of people who look differently than us. And let's be honest, our church family isn't very welcoming of people who do look the same as us. We have a problem just to be welcoming in our churches, period. Yet when it comes to these discussions on race, let's not follow the media's agenda, nor follow the media trying to pull the rug over our eyes and the eyes of our neighbors, creating narratives that add to their bottom dollar. But those narratives, while making the media rich, are tearing and fracturing our nation at the seams. All right, I've already gone 20 minutes. I'm going too long. So let me just finish this up real quick. Third story you have to know. Speaking of tearing our nation apart, the Biden administration just announced last Friday that they are reversing some Trump-era policies and are allowing for the National Institute of Health to once again buy and research on babies' body parts that are bought after an elective abortion. So the Trump administration stopped this practice. The Biden administration starting it right back up. Archbishop Joseph Naumann of Kansas City said this: "Our government has no right to treat innocent abortion victims as a commodity that can be scavenged for body parts to be used in research." Friends, is it any surprise that we treat even living unborn children then as a commodity? We could either kill them or not. I mean, what's the big deal if we use their body parts as a commodity and we test on them? And we actually, and this just broke last week, we covered it on the show, we're using these body parts to humanize mice. We're testing them on animals. We're just running experiments with the body parts of aborted babies from abortions. At the National Institute of Health, that's our government doing this. Look, if we continue to allow mothers in this nation to kill their own children, what is to keep brothers from killing each other? What is there to keep us from killing each other? If there isn't peace between a mother and her child, there will not be peace in this nation. Lastly, friends, this is why, last story, we must choose life. So let me tell you about a story of a mother who chose life. Her name is Sharice Parsons. And 21 years ago, she was struggling financially. She already had 2 kids, and she was thinking about aborting her 3rd child after she was learned that she was pregnant. The day before she went into the abortion facility, though, her phone rang, and it was Sister Hall from church. When Cherise told her that she was doing just fine, Sister Hall said she was hiding something, and eventually the truth came to the surface. She was pregnant. She was thinking about having an abortion. Micah, her son, now 21 years old, said that, quote, she talked my mom out of it. I think that is why my mom was always like, God looks over you, son, and you should continue to keep doing good in your life and give back to God. That was one of the first lessons she taught me. Who is this son, Micah Parsons, that Cherise thought that she didn't have enough money to raise? Micah Parsons is the Penn State 6'3", 245-pound All-American linebacker who's about to become a first-round draft pick in the National Football League. He's about to become a multi-millionaire. Now, Micah has not lived a perfect life. And there are no guarantees when a mother chooses life that her son or daughter, what they might become. But when we choose life, when we give life a chance, we give God a chance to work out something really beautiful. And in Micah's case, something really powerful. Good luck, Micah. And thank you, Cherise, for choosing life. May we all have the courage today to choose life, to choose the truth, and to preach that life and truth to our culture, which is in desperate need of that today. Folks, thanks so much for joining me today. Really appreciate it. I hope to see you next week on The Catholic Citizen. I'm sad to turn it off. I'm sad to go, but I have to. We'll see you next Friday, guys.